Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Welcome to Lost in Science for the first show of 2021. My name is Claire and it is a new year and we are so glad to have you with us. Stu, how have you been? How has your 2021 been?
Well, pretty good so far. Got away for a little while down on the coast of Victoria, went down to Port Fairy, Port Campbell, had a bit of a holiday down there, but thanks to old La Nina, it was not very nice weather, so I didn't get to. I got to go to the beach, but I didn't go for a swim because it was too cold. But it was good to get away for a while.
It was good to get away.
Yeah.
And have you been reading about much science while you've been on holiday during January of 2021?
Oh, look, have I what? There's always science stories popping up in my peripheral vision that I have to file them away and revisit them later sometimes. But there's a lot of science that's been happening, and I'm going to go through a couple of stories. One of the big stories, of course, is related to the change of government in the US. They're back on track with a bit of evidence-based policy, which has been somewhat lacking the last few years, but more about that later in the show, and also some little funny bits and pieces that I picked up in the last couple of days. But obviously, you know, we've been quiet for a month or so. There's a lot of science to catch up on. We should get back right into it, I think.
We definitely need to get back right into it. And I love the idea that we're going to be getting an insight into the interesting tidbits that you've been reading about and filing over the past 4 weeks. Love that. And I hope there was some non-COVID related stuff in there to keep you entertained as well.
Oh, 100%.
Well, this week on the show, we have, for the first episode back for 2021, after our summer series, of course. And if you listen to our summer series, thank you. But this week we've got two guests. We've got Dr. Elodie Campras. So Elodie's from Remember the Wild and Deakin University, and we also have Cassie Speakman, who is also from Deakin University. And you know, they are ecologists and study different areas of biodiversity, and also in their spare time coordinate the Victorian Biodiversity Conference, which is happening next week online. So all welcome to the Biodiversity Conference. So stay tuned to hear a bit more about that, what is going to be happening at the conference, and a little bit about not only urban biodiversity, which is what Elodie studies, but also Australian fur seals, which I do love. Love a bit of fur seal.
I was reading about Australian fur seals down at Port Fairy because there used to be a huge population down there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, used to be.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, operative words.
Mm.
Well, on with the show.
We had to take a bit of a break to recuperate and regenerate and reinvigorate, but the thing about science is it just never stops. And over the break since the end of 2020, there's been so much happening in the world, and of course in the world of science. Now, firstly, we have to welcome the US back to the land of rational thought and evidence-based policy. After a fairly shaky start to the year in the first week of January, if you remember back to some...
Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it?
Jamiroquai trying to make make some virtual insanity in the Capitol building. But the machinery of government has clunked into place, and a new president is replacing some other guy who used to sit around in the Oval Office.
Yeah. I mean, does anyone even remember that guy?
Who even was that guy?
Who even was that guy? That civilian?
Some golfing guy. But Joe Biden has been very busy after moving into the White House, putting back together the broken pieces of science-based advice to the US president in the form of the President's Council on Science and Technology, or PCAST, which was basically abandoned by the side of the road under the previous administration. So this is a group who was set up by executive order to advise the US president on science and technology issues which may affect policy decisions. And let's face it, in the 21st century, there is not much that isn't affected in some way by science and or technology. He has appointed 2 women as co-chairs of the council. Frances Arnold, who's a Nobel Prize-winning chemist who has used evolutionary theory to produce novel enzymes to speed up chemical processes.
Oh.
So she's a very well-known and very accomplished chemist. And Maria Zuba, who's an astronomer who has been heavily involved in NASA missions, which does tend to indicate that space is back on the agenda for the US government after sort of taking a bit of a back seat to private enterprise, I think, for a while. I mean, there's a whole lot of commercial space operations going on at the moment, but the government looks like they're going to dip their toes back in those waters, possibly in a more sciencey way than Space Force, which was the last administration's space objective, I guess, would be one way to put it. Biden also announced a huge government-wide policy review, putting climate change action as a top priority in every field that the government has involvement in, from education, agriculture, industry, economics, everything across the board. So it's a huge turnaround from the previous administration's do-nothing approach to climate change, which very much went along with their do-nothing approach to just about everything else as well. But that is good news on that front. Perhaps our own government can be inspired by their renewed enthusiasm for protecting the environment. And another executive order Biden has signed off is protecting scientists from political influence. So he's basically saying you can't pressure the scientists to give you results that you want just because you're in the government, which is an interesting angle and, an important thing to do, because science should show what is true and what is demonstrable in the world, not just what you want to hear, obviously. Now, another story that did catch my eye the other day. Now, Claire, do you fight to the finish because you eat your spinach, like Popeye the Sailor Man?
I do like my spinach.
So spinach is good for our health, though possibly not as good as we've been led to believe. A stray decimal point years ago had convinced us it was much higher in iron than it actually is for quite a long time, and it was always, it's very high in iron, but it's still good, but it's not as good as we thought it was.
So there was a typo
Yeah.
in a scientific journal that wasn't picked up on, and obviously the experiment wasn't replicated by anybody else for a very long time, right? And so it led to people believing that spinach was super high in iron.
Look, it actually was picked up at the time, but the story had gotten out already, so some journalist wrote about it, and then it sort of got spread through, the social media or media of the time, I guess. This is early 1900s. But the science self-corrected really quickly, but the public perception didn't. It took a long time to catch up, which itself is a cautionary tale. So we do know that leafy greens are good for our health, lots of fibre, lots of vitamins, but they may also be good for the planet by letting us know when things are going wrong in the environment. So plants have been used as proverbial canaries in the coal mine for quite a long time by indicating when various substances are present in the soil. We can sample the leaves and find out what the plants are absorbing out of the environment, and we can, react to it. This is too low tech. This is so 20th century. So some scientists at MIT in the United States thought it would be easier if the plants could just send us an email when something is wrong. And now, they can.
What?
So by engineering carbon nanotubes inside spinach plants, the scientists have developed a system where if certain substances are present in the groundwater where the plant roots grow, they automatically send a signal to a transmitter that forwards an alert email to a monitoring station. This can be used to detect things like leaking explosives from landmines.
Wow.
Or other potentially dangerous chemical contamination. Depends what they set it up to detect.
And how often do they get it right?
Every time, because it's designed to pick up this specific thing. So the false positives are non-existent. But even then, you'd rather have a false positive that there might be a landmine somewhere than get no indication at all, I guess. But the scientists who developed this system say that spinach and other plants similar, they're perfect for this. They have extensive root systems. They're constantly drawing material, drawing substances out of the soil, and they've got a built-in pumping system to constantly bring those substances and the water in contact with these nanotube sensors. It's unbelievable.
Oh boy. I was wondering where that was going to go.
Yeah.
It is. I'm really looking forward to how far they can push it. Will they just be sending emails, or will they be sending sort of like emojis? Will they be like how far can we push this this communication between plants and humans?
I can't wait to see their animated GIF game. How good are they going to be at these memes? Can the spinach be the darling of the internet? We don't know. We'll have to wait and find out.
We don't know how many Twitter followers spinach in the remediation soil is going to get. If someone like Donald Trump can get 70 million or however many he's got.
Well, let's just assume spinach isn't going to pay for followers like some other people. Now, lastly, the last thing I wanted to do was shout out to Dr. Alex Held, who is an Australian space researcher who's been honoured with the 2020 Harry Massey Award for Space Science. This is an annual award, goes out for space science, a very broad area. Alex Held is a scientist who observes the Earth from space, but also does a lot of other research in space. So he was honoured with this award, but also had a minor 5-kilometre diameter planet in the asteroid belt named after him. So,
wow.
So that's pretty cool. Congratulations to Alex. It will be an honour that is long held.
Was that whole thing just for the joke?
Yeah, that was it. That was just for the joke.
Stu, it might be a new year, but when it comes to your jokes, nothing's changed. This week on the show, we have two scientists working to solve the world's biodiversity challenges in very different ways. Dr. Elodie Campraz from Remember the Wild and Deakin University studies the impact of urbanisation on native wildlife. And Cassie Speakman, PhD researcher from Deakin University, investigates how environmental changes affect the Australian fur seal. So together, they also happen to be coordinating the Victorian Biodiversity Conference next week, a conference to share knowledge and better understand and reverse global biodiversity decline. So it's been around for a while, the Victorian Biodiversity Conference. I think it might be in its 5th year, but this year's the first time they're going online. And there's an invite out for anyone with an interest in biodiversity to come along. So Elodie and Cassie, welcome to Lost in Science.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
The Victorian Biodiversity Conference, is it in its 5th year now?
Yes. That's exactly right, Claire. Yes, It's been around for a few years now. It's been held at different universities across Melbourne, and this year was meant to be at Deakin University, but because we had to go online. So we're very excited to hold our very first online conference this year. Well, one of the aims of running this conference is to have a conference that is affordable for postgraduate students and early career researchers. So there's always a small fee to cover the costs of running the conference, but this year it's easier to join and everyone can join from the comfort of their homes.
Absolutely, and not just people in Victoria, I imagine, people all over the world can join. What can people expect from the conference?
So we have great sessions as usual, with talks from postgraduate students and early career researchers. We also have exciting plenaries and panel discussions. So it's all happening on the 11th and 12th of February. And prior to that, for people that need to upskill, we also have some exciting workshops that will run online as well.
And can you two both tell me what you're most looking forward to about the conference?
I honestly haven't really thought about it. I'm most looking forward to seeing some of the plenaries. We've got some really exciting talks, including one from Minda Murray, an Indigenous woman from Yorta Yorta. So it'll be really interesting to see what she has to say.
So I'm most excited about seeing the range of presentations and hearing about all the research from Victorian-based researchers and early career practitioners.
I mean, graphical abstract sounds a little bit abstract for me, but it sounds like you've got quite a range of different ecologists and science communicators in the plenaries as well, which sounds super exciting on a range of different subjects.
Yes, and it is both. The idea of the conference is to represent not only people from academia, but also people from outside academia. So we have quite a few experts that are coming from industry, whether it's consultancy or local governments or not-for-profit. So we're very excited to hear about their research and their work.
So apart from coordinating a whole conference, you both are scientists in your day jobs, so to speak, as well. Elodie, you work on urban wildlife. Can you tell us a bit about your research?
Sure. So I work at Wildlife Victoria on top of working at Remember the Wild and Deakin University. So it's an organisation that is focused on wildlife rescue and rehabilitation. So every day we take calls from members of the public who want to report sick, orphaned and injured animals, and we organise rescue and rehabilitation after that. So because, the world population is increasing and urbanisation is increasing, we're impacting on wildlife more and more. And on top of that, especially with COVID nowadays, we've realised that nature is something that we really need, and that include interaction with healthy wildlife populations. So there's a push across the world to what's called Bring Nature Back to Cities, which is focused on bringing back native species that might have declined or are locally extinct.
So just on that, in the Melbourne region, what would be an example?
So in the Melbourne region, in urban areas, one of the main threat is car collisions. So we have a lot of wildlife that is hit by car and need to be rescued or rehabilitated as a result. But the main threats really depend on the species that we take into account. So when I'm talking about car collisions, it might be more so for species like kangaroos or wombats. But, for example, threatened species in the city like flying foxes are more so affected by, being entangled in fruit netting in gardens, for example, or being entangled in rubbish, things like that.
So most of the big threats to urban wildlife, in the cities, it's very much car collisions, but it really depends on the species. How can we mitigate against these threats?
So the problem with urban environments is that it's hard for ecologists to collect data on urban wildlife. So citizen science has been used quite a lot. But now we're realizing the potential of using data collected by wildlife emergency response services like Wildlife Victoria. It's a massive amount of data. It's sometimes hundreds of cases that are coming in every day with information on urban wildlife. So my collaborators at Deakin and Monash University and myself are hoping that by using this data, we can understand human-wildlife conflicts better. And that's the first step towards mitigating those conflicts and helping inform initiatives that want to bring nature back to cities.
Now, Cassie, you work with Australian fur seals, which sounds incredible. And I can imagine potentially terrifying if you become face-to-face with an angry one. But I'm sure they're not all like that. Tell us a bit about the research, the type of research that you do, and how do you do it?
Well, I was lucky with COVID that my research doesn't require much field work. So I'm using a lot of pre-collected data that's been collected over the last 20 years. So we can finally use these big data sets and be able to have a look at what sort of longer term impacts might be happening from environmental change. I do get to do some field work, and it's not as scary as it sounds because I do the winter field work when it's mostly females and their pups, and you sneak up on them and you quickly run and throw a net over them. So it's really not that terrifying. It's, if anything, a little bit amusing to watch people running around with these giant nets and trying not to be seen. So they'll poke their heads up over the little grasses on the island, and they look a little bit like meerkats. And then they quickly pop their heads back down, and then you keep scurrying along until you find a female that is definitely suckling a pup, because they're the ones that we're mostly interested in. So it's just a lot of crawling around on your knees and carrying around a big net. But it's quite interesting. And
what sort of samples are you taking, or what sort of measurements once you do throw the net over?
I'm mostly using biologging devices, so things like GPS, and having a look at their dive logs. So we just glue them on their backs. Thankfully, you can just cut that off, or they molt off once they molt. Otherwise, we get whisker samples, blood samples, and we have been getting milk samples. So I have milked a seal.
Wow.
It smells very fishy. So.
That's a good trivia question. I love that. What does seal milk smell like? It's obvious, isn't it? Fish. And what has the data shown to you? What have you sort of deduced from the research that you've been doing?
So I'm still working on a lot of that, but I had a paper come out last year which was looking at the effects of some of the broad scale climate things like the El Nino Southern Oscillation, as well as some local scale things like the wind or temperature. And there were definite influences, but they're quite convoluted, and it could be due to changes in where their prey go, or just the amount of prey that's there, or even potentially like the effects of them on land. So if it's too hot, they might need more time foraging or less time foraging, and those sorts of indirect influences from the weather and climate. So I'm still working on finding out those nitty-gritty details, but it's looking quite interesting so far.
Well, thank you so much, Elodie and Cassie, for coming on Lost in Science, telling us all about the Victorian Biodiversity Conference and, of course, your own research. Now, for people who are interested in connecting in and attending the conference online, tell us a bit about where they can find out that information.
So you can go across to the Vic Biocon website. It's just vicbiocon.com. Otherwise, we've got a Twitter and Facebook, which are both just Vic Biocon, so nice and easy to find us anywhere. And we've got all of the information, like the programs and everything, up online, as well as registration for the conference and the workshops. And we'd like to thank the sponsors that have helped us get this virtual conference running nice and smoothly. So they've been really valuable to helping this get off the ground and make it a great experience for everyone.
Well, Elodie and Cassie, thank you again for coming and talking to us on Lost in Science this week. I can't wait for the Victorian Biodiversity Conference and to be able to hear from ecologists and people working at the forefront of biodiversity throughout the next week. That's all we have time for on another episode of Lost in Science. Thanks for joining us. Lost in Science is recorded on the lands of the Kulin Nation at the studios of 3CR and broadcast across Australia on the Community Radio Network with the kind support of the Community Broadcasting Foundation. If you would like to get in touch with us, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at lostinsight@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, where we are Lost in Science on 3CR, or try us on Twitter, where we are Lost in Science 1, or just tune in again next week, wherever you listen to us, when Stu, Claire and Chris get lost in science.
Thanks for listening to a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online.